What's up, Artifam? This is Artifact News coming to you with episode number 2, Space Pod Burning. Keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. You really need to do your own research out here. With the current macroeconomic environment and all the geopolitical drama, we really got to be safe. Anything could happen at any moment. Also, I'm not a space pod realtor. I'm not a pod pusher. I'm not even the pod father. That's Ninja. I do own a few pods. I want you to keep that in mind. I'm going to try to remain objective and not go into hype or FOMO. But also, I've never sold any pods, and I don't plan on selling any pods. And personally, I'm hoping in the future there'll be some type of harvestable resource or some type of drip allocation or something that'll provide value for just holding onto the pods. So that's where I'm at with that. And also, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the space pods from a past, present, and future points of view. We're going to take a look at the origin story and the lore and where it came from. Then we're going to examine the current situation with the space pod burning and all of the information that we currently have available to us. Then we're going to jump over to the future and do a little speculating and a little extrapolating and kind of try to wrap our minds around where this could possibly be going. We'll also examine a few other projects that have successful land projects and see what they're offering to their communities and see if Artifact could maybe implement some of that. So buckle up. There's a lot of information here. This is going to be a pretty long video, but it's going to be fun and informative, and I think you're going to get something out of it. So let's go. Let's go back to the future and check out the origin story of the space pods. Okay, so we're just going to go all the way back to where it all started, when the clones actually minted out, which was November 30th, 2021. I just want to touch on this briefly because I remember when it minted out, we were already hearing stories that there was some kind of airdrop coming soon, which was crazy for me, because it just showed like how on point Artifact was already, that they already had an airdrop coming very soon after the initial mint. I didn't know what it was going to be. I was thinking maybe some kind of a companion or something. Those were the early guesses. But then there were some other hints that kind of steered us to where we were going. The first of which was this hint right here, where Benoit says he was very hyped to finally start working with OnCyber and Ryan from OnCyber. And also he was going to be bringing on an old friend in the project, and Jarlin Perez. And as you can see right here, this room, this gamer room, was created by Jarlin for Benoit for the game company Fnatic. So Jarlin clearly has crazy architecture skills, and that kind of led to, okay, well, if he's really good at architecture, maybe it's some kind of a building or land or something. So before we move on too far past this, let's take a look at some of Jarlin's work real quick. He is the lead architect, and we should definitely check out some of his stuff here. So yeah, we all know for sure him from the space pod and the loot pod. And here's some of his other ones too. He has like some of these game rooms, and they're just meticulously crafted, and the 3D is completely on point, and the lighting and the shading, and it's just like completely destroyed it. It looks incredibly epic. So yeah, I mean, you could go to jarlinperez.com. I suggest following him on Twitter. He's always dropping some sweet art and some alpha here and there where we might be heading. But yeah, just taking a look at this stuff, it was completely inspiring. So he's got some great photography on here. His illustrations, I mean, really creating some serious environmental vibes here. Like, this is how you world craft. So, I mean, he's basically on that worldcraft vibe, and he might end up being the lead on the world crafting for Artifact. But yeah, he's also real famous for these robots here, which down the line, do we see robot companions from Jarlan? It seems pretty likely, to be honest, but also he could be just full steam on the whole pod structure, possibly a rollout of Artifact City or Cyber City. Who really knows? But he's clearly got the talent for it. He used to work with Google, I believe, but now he's a full-time member of Artifact, which is great for us. So, yeah, happy to have him. All right, so now let's get back to the pods real quick. So, yeah, I mean, this was the biggest tweet right here. Space pod airdrop. This made it official. And this is the first item on the roadmap that will be airdropped at the end of the month. And as long as you had a clone, you got dropped a space pod. And this was insane on a bunch of levels. First, we're already getting land, and it's not even, I mean, it's December 12th here. We minted out on November 30th, so they're already talking about the airdrop and its land. So that's really crazy. But also, check this out. You could actually, this is Benoit's pod. You can actually walk around in your pod. And you could decorate it. You got the sleeping quarters. Got some space trip callouts. You got the bathroom mirror. So yeah, I mean, this is entirely innovative right here. Like, not only is it land, which is a great thing to get, but you can actually walk around in it and interact with it. You can host people in it. I mean, you could invite people to your pod, not right away, like in terms of multiplayer, but you could say, hey, come visit my pod, and somebody could jump in there and see what you got. How about this though? They could also purchase it. So these pods are just more than a place to just kind of hang out. I mean, they're basically legitimate art galleries as well, because I can sit here and make an offer on this piece right now. So yeah, it's innovative on like 10 different levels, which is insane. So that's a little look at the space pod there. Let's get back to this. So now that was on December 12th, and I said by the end of the month. The end of the month is Christmas. Does that mean we're going to get them on Christmas? Yes, we did. How crazy. CloneX Space Pod drop on Christmas, December 25th. It was official. Christmas trees in the pod. Being able to walk around in it. I mean, mind-blowing experience. What a gift. Just hitting on all cylinders right there with all of this. So yeah, that was a big moment in SpacePod history, and that was going to be followed up by the Loop Pod, introducing the Pod X, Pod's extension system. So this is bigger than just one Loop Pod. Also, this is just like this entire idea that there's going to be multiple additions onto the SpacePod. How crazy is that? I mean, and this tweet right here, you should check this tweet out if you can. It's on Twitter. Follow Artifact if you're not already, but there's a little video which has some great music and stuff. It's a great promo video, but it also shows something pretty important, which is this. So you can see this is telling us that the space pod looks like it is on a street. I mean, I don't know that you can 100% say that that's just all the way for sure, but it looks like it's a street. And then you have all of these little plus signs here, which looks like they're extra spaces for new extensions, which is incredibly exciting. I mean, I don't know how many other ones you could have, but maybe they're just additions onto it to increase the size, via pod burning, and maybe that's what this is for. Or maybe like possible like a garage, which would be great. Get some vehicles in there. I mean, who really knows where that is all going to go, but it was just a really good glimpse into the future for loop pods. And then we can also take a look at the loop pod real quick. Let's see if we can get over. So the loop pod actually connects to your space pod, and you can just walk right on through, and then here you are. You have your residential, which is your space pod, and now you have what looks like a commercial piece of real estate, to be honest. That was the first thing that hit me when I first saw this, because I mean, first of all, this is the first time we've seen all of the branding here, with the Nike, Jordan, Converse, and Artifact logos straight up above what looks to be a shoe wall. So was the intention of Artifact to basically make this a high-end shoe boutique where people could come, they could hang out with you, and then if they like something that you had on the wall, they could just pick it up. So, I mean, that just opens the doors for all kinds of experiences right there. You could have a little party and invite some people over and unveil some new NFTs, and maybe they could bid on them or something. You could have some really great experiences if you want. They also let us fully customize these pods, and in fact, there was even contests. And if you won the contest, you were able to sell your design and earn half the royalties for your design, which is crazy because you're in conjunction with Artifact there, and they have a huge reach. So that could be highly profitable for you. But some of the designs were epic, and I mean, just the customizability of this is insane. But that also takes us to another point about digital real estate, which is very innovative also, is the monolith. There was a quest, and here was this door. This door was locked at first, but next thing you know, additional square footage on your real estate. I mean, that just can't happen with actual real estate. With digital real estate, you can add all kinds of square footage. I mean, that's a really weird value proposition, because not only you can add square footage, but you can add different types of utility or different kind of functionality. But here we see these doors are all still locked. I think there was word that these were going to lead to possibly your friends or other places that you want to quickly go to. That hasn't been disclosed yet, but there was a lot of monolith trials in here, and just really cool. I mean, it's limitless what this could turn into, and it's off to such a insanely great start already. It's very exciting, to say the least. I'm very excited about it. So they did a great job with this. So that's the origin story of the Space Pod and the Loot Pod. We got to talk a little bit about Jarlin and actually take a look at walking around these. So now we know where we've been now. Now let's talk about where we are currently. And that is with the Space Pod burning talk that has been going on. All right, now that we know where the Space Pods came from and the Loot Pods, and we understand their origin story, now let's actually talk about why we're here and the title of the video, which is Space Pod Burning. The Space Pod Burning is huge. Whether you're a collector or a creator, it's huge for you. So like from a collector's perspective, a supply squeeze, that's generally good for price action, right? When the supply is coming down, as long as the demand stays constant, and if the demand increases, then the price is just gonna go wild, right? So depending on how many pods are actually burned in here, and that is going to be determined by like how useful it is to actually burn the pods. Do you get some cool new utility, new features added? Like what is actually going to come along with that? Like that's just a huge piece of news that we do not know yet. But when we find that out, it's definitely going to affect the price of the pods. They've been basically laying dormant because I think the market is a little bit confused and they're not exactly sure where this is all going. And soon, I think we're going to get a lot more answers. But now, like, the pod burning is big too if you're a creator, because with more space just comes a bigger canvas to just really go wild and create something just unfathomable that we could never have imagined in terms of architecture. So we've already seen that there was contests before. There's probably going to be more contests. More contests comes a bigger chance to get your name out there and to do something really epic, right? And just make a name for yourself. So whatever side of the spectrum you're on, it's a huge deal. So let's dive into some of the information that we actually have and just take a look at what's to come. Okay, so there was one tweet that really set it off, and that was this tweet right here. This is when they're showing some appreciation for the collectors, and they say, we will allow base pod owners to upgrade their pods by burning the base pod given at Christmas. So they make sure there to make a distinction between the base pods and the loot pods, and to definitely draw a line that it's just going to be the base pods. But also, like, just this idea that all of a sudden we're going to be able to burn them and combine them, that's insane. Like, didn't really see that coming all the way. And it's just a super innovative, amazing thing to do. So, you know, of course, instantly straight to Discord to completely just start generating theories with everybody and to get hyped, right? So, in Discord and just talking with everybody and trying to understand what might be happening here. And Benoit was actually in the conversation, unbeknownst to us. And I wanted to ask some questions here because I'm really interested to see, are we going to get more utility, or is this just going to be like a size increase or like a footprint increase, you know, just kind of expanding the pod to offer more, or like a larger gallery type concept, or are we going to get like some new utility? Because as a video gamer, I'm just, you know, I just love the idea of having some fun utility that's involved. Granted, the gallery concept is completely amazing, and be able to sell NFTs out of your space is gigantic, right? So anyway, I'm asking if it's just this, is it the size, utility, or is it like an upgrade? And Benoit, he says, you'll see, size of course, LOL. So I took this to mean that he did not want to talk about the utility. And granted, there's just probably, it would be really tough for him to do that there. So it's just better to not even talk about it because he doesn't want to give away anything that, you know, could be crucial. I understand that. So I took it that way. I mean, you could also take it that maybe there is no new utility involved. I highly doubt that, but you could take it that way. But anyway, so we know there's going to be a size increase for sure. Also, I just wanted to make sure we do cover this tweet too here. This was Benoit. And I think there was a lull in the action for a little while, and he just wanted to kind of get out in front of it and say, hey, you know, for space pod owners, like asking what's next. Well, he's saying that the space pod got the loot pod. The space pod burning to upgrade is planned. And also, remember, space pods were the first element of our step-by-step metaverse play and pod ecosystem. So, you know, he's definitely just trying to say, like, understand that this is a big part of what we're laying out here. Trying to give us a little hint there. So, also, you know, he was trying to keep our spirits up here. Here's Skittles37 asking some great questions here. When is pod burning coming? How many do you need to combine to get to the next level? And what do they combine to? None of which Benoit answered, but those were great questions. But he did say, we'll start to communicate back about that in May. It's still in the works and really dope. We're having a ton of fun working on it. That's awesome. I mean, that's just getting us hype right there. And like, it sounds like it's going well, and what they want to be done is getting done. So that's pretty hype. I like that. So now the biggest question on everybody's mind is, how many are you going to need? Well, you'll need several. According to this tweet right here, when Xenophoenix asks, for space pod burning, do we only need to own one extra, or is there tiers to the upgrade system? That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. And yeah, this is what's on everybody's mind here. I mean, if you have 2 pods, is that going to be enough? Well, here, Benoit is saying you're going to need several. And several, I believe, is 3 or more. I've tried to look up several, the definition for it, and there was several different definitions for it, oddly enough. But yeah, it sounds like it's going to be 3 or more, right? So that's a big piece of alpha right there that is actually functional alpha that we can make plans on and start to say, okay, so like if I really want to get involved in pod burning, I'm gonna have to have several pods. So which is also crazy when you think about it, because of several pods to burn, that could increase the rate of the burn and the supply squeeze, which could drive the price up more quickly than if it was just one pod to burn. So, again, this is almost video gaming in some way. Like, it's interactive, being able to walk around the pod and that kind of things. And video gamers can be pretty fickle. Like, it's really going to come down to the utility, and is it interesting? Is it innovative? Is it something that's fun? And I guess that's just going to be a big factor in whether or not the price goes up or down right here. So that was one major piece of functional alpha. And then another piece that came a little bit later, and I'd like to thank NFT Guru for this question. And did Benito Pagato decide on involving the loot pod? Ben actually answered, surprisingly, and he said, yes, we decided to involve it in the end. Oh man, that was huge. That's a really big piece of news. Because again, I mean, if we're talking about several here, those are going to go quick when people start burning these things. People are going to start snapping them up, I believe, if it's interesting. So, like, big asterisk there. If it's interesting and it takes several to upgrade, then people should be running to purchase them. But again, this is not financial advice. I mean, the market is in despair right now. We could see a huge fall off in the market just overall in general, which could affect space pod pricing. I'm definitely not saying to go out and buy space pods. I'm just looking at it from an economics point of view. When there's a supply squeeze, if the demand stays constant or goes up, then the price generally goes up. And what it's going to take here is if the utility is interesting. And that's yet to be seen, right? Now, I trust the team that they're going to make it interesting. But until that happens, the jury's still out, right? But it's still exciting. So that's where we're at right now with the space pod burning. We've got some pretty concrete fundamentals finally that we understand. There's definitely going to be loot pods. We know that it's going to take several, and that might be the biggest piece of the news to come out of all of it. And we know that they're having a good time, and that things are probably going according to plan, and they're pretty excited about it. So now that we know that, we know where everything came from, we know where we are now with the space pod burning. Now let's look at some of the potential in the future. And also we can take a look at a few competitors too. They have some land, and maybe see what kinds of things they're doing, and maybe is that something that Artifact's going to do. All right, let's do it. Okay, so we talked about the past and the origin story. Then we talked about the present and the pod burning details. Now let's take a look into the future and just see what some of the potential for all of this is. I mean, where could this be going, and why is it important to us in general as pod holders, clone holders? So let's dive in. Okay, so first we're just going to take a look at a poll here. This is just a poll that I hosted. 70 votes. Will there be a resource allocated to the pods in the Artifact ecosystem? For example, will a certain amount of drip be dropped to a pod owner, or will there be a gamified harvestable resource associated with the pod? Basically, will the pods offer passive mailbox money? And 45% said yes. And obviously, wishful thinking on all of our parts there, because that's what we're really looking for. And it's not a really crazy idea to want to look for that, because we have seen that in other games or other projects. Let's check this out. This is Axie Infinity. Now granted, Axie Infinity, they had some real problems with their economics and with their SLP tokens and stuff. I mean, they definitely needed an economic overhaul, and it cost their project dearly. There was a hack and stuff, but really they're majorly innovative. It's a huge project, and I'm sure they're going to be leading into the future in some way. But they definitely were leading in a bunch of other ways this whole time, one of which is in land. And here we can see, this is their map right here. This is the overarching map with each of these little squares representing plots of land. So in the center, that's what is called Luno's Landing, which is a gigantic resource, basically. The closer you are to that, I believe the easier it's going to be for you to allocate resources or to gather resources. Now, I don't own any Axie Infinity. I don't know every single detail or in and out about this, but I do know that the land was trading at super high valuations, and the idea of having harvestable resources on your land is a great idea. I mean, we've seen other projects now, like Wolf Game, and I'm sure there's just 100 projects now that have land with resources on it that you can harvest. But they look like they're really doing a good job of it. I mean, this looks like pretty solid traditional video game artwork here and design in general. But you have a piece of land, and depending on where it is, and there's definitely a little gamification there. Well, a lot of gamification, but there's a little bit of luck involved too to see what resources you get. But I mean, that could be some pretty sweet passive income, because resources grow on your land, you farm them, and then you sell them in the marketplace. So land, when you think about it from a resource angle like that, can be just a really it literally could be a life-changing event for some people. I mean, rather than having an investment property, granted you can live in it. Okay, so let's just be honest about that. That's obviously a huge deal. But investment properties are also a complete pain. New roof, new water heater, got to fix the floors. One of the renters got injured on the property. And you never really own land anyway, at least in the United States. I mean, you could buy an investment property. You don't actually own the land, right? At the end of the day, you're just kind of renting it. Because if you don't pay the property taxes, at some point, they can just come take it from you. Now, digital land's a little bit different, right? I mean, clearly you can't live on it. You can't actually live on it, so that's a big deal. But if it's got harvestable resources, and you can, gather with friends and family virtually and have some fun using the resources or whatever utility is involved, there's some things to be said. Also, you can put it on a ledger, jump on a plane, go to a different country, still got your land with you. Don't have to maintain it or do anything with it. Resources are gathering all the time. I mean, there's an argument that could be made that you would rather own some digital land than real land. So, I don't know, especially depending on the resources involved. And, could Artifact innovate on this? Could I see Artifact in the future having the type of land that everybody would like to be part of, and there being some drip allocated to a landowner, or maybe a proximity boost to resources, say in like the downtown center of a city? So, proximity bonus, or some kind of mailbox money where they're dropping passive money to, or not like traditional money, right? I mean, like a utility token that's used in their metaverse. You could see different ways that the land is going to generate value. So Axie Infinity was one of those teams that kind of kicked that off for me anyway. But also, there's Fluff World. I don't know if anybody's really paying attention to this team. I'm sure they are. Their community is huge, and they're all over it. Snoop Dogg's involved. I mean, the McDonald brothers are geniuses, and their projects are killing it, if you ask me. So like Fluff World, they have burrows. I don't even know that we're gonna get a good look here at the burrows, but they're here. We can check them out on OpenSea. I don't know that there's going to be much going. Yeah, we can at least see a little bit about what's going on. But 3D avatars running around the burrows. They look really well designed, and I don't know. That's definitely interesting. Altered State Machines is always doing something innovative. All the way. They're really pushing the envelope constantly. So anyway, they have some cool land too. Fluff World, right? But obviously, here's a real controversial one. Other side, right? They completely drained the entire NFT community of a ton of liquidity, lost in failed gas fee transactions. So like beyond all of that, right? Because, hey, is it forgivable? I don't know. I don't even want to get into that. But what I want to do is talk about the execution here, like other than that. And it looks great. I mean, in all fairness, I do own a couple of these lands. So I want to let you know that. But I'm not trying to pump or dump them. I'm just going to hold on to them for a long time and just see where this goes, right? So, but the lands have resources on them. And they're harvestable. Probably going to have a marketplace where you can sell those resources. If you get lucky and your resources are really in demand and they're growing constantly and you can, farm them and sell them, I mean, that's great. So there's all different types of lands and types of resources. There's codas involved. Here's the codas. I mean, this is definitely going to be a part of their entire workings with Improbable, and Other Side is going to be a huge deal. And I don't know. I mean, I could see Artifact doing something like this too, like having farmable resources, or I guess we're going to be more in a cyber city type of a thing. So I don't know. There's going to be a ton of farming going on, but there could definitely be something interesting where there's some kind of resource that's allocated to your pod, or maybe you combine multiple pods and there's more resources involved. I think that would be great. But this just makes it really fun. I mean, this is like what I know from traditional old school video gaming right here. This kind of artwork with the hammers and like the scrolls and just like the type of artwork. It's just kind of fun to interact with and collect that kind of stuff. So when I start thinking about Artifact really diving in and getting into the gamification of all of this, it just gets really exciting. So space pod burning, I mean, when they roll out a little bit more of the details of the pod burning, I think we're going to get, they've already said we're going to get some details about let's see right here. The overall lore and greater storyline will kick off with the space pod burning this summer. So already we're talking like we're diving into a metaverse with lore involved. And we already know a little bit about the lore. Like if we just go here. So Clone X Corp was founded by 3 extraterrestrials who came from the planet Orbitar from the Draco constellation. Their interplanetary tourists have come to accelerate our evolution towards an immaterial existence. So we have a little bit of lore, but what they're talking about is rolling out some serious lore, which is going to provide the background to their entire metaverse. You know, I don't even want to necessarily call it video gaming anymore. I think it's going to be a whole different thing. Metaverse gaming, I don't even know if you call it gaming necessarily, but just being in the metaverse is going to be, I think, way more social than gaming. I think now, like, we do a lot of gaming and squeeze a little social in. I think the metaverse gaming, or the metaverse, we're going to do a lot of social and just squeeze in gaming. I think it's going to flip. I don't know. It's just a call that I'm thinking, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to see the overall lore. That's going to be a huge deal, and it really could do a lot to the price action if you're talking about this from a collector's perspective. Like, if they, for instance, get a really great writer, okay, that could be a big deal. Or if they just nail it in-house too, that's fine. But like, if they got a really great writer like they did, you know, they got Murakami, that was a big deal for their entire collection. So we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next tweet after this one. But here, what we can see is this is a tweet recently too, September 13th. There's an abacus, which means, you know, the adding of, and here we can see these floating type pods. Well, they look like pods. I mean, are they space pods? I don't really know. Remember earlier we saw that it looked like the space pods were on the ground, like they were on the street. So these things floating in the air doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Unless maybe the space pods, yeah, they were on the street in that picture, but the space pods can actually travel in the air. So maybe they're aircraft. Maybe this is just a random puzzle. I don't know. It really looks like space pods, okay? And, you know, I'd be remiss to not say this, but there have been many delays related to the space pods. I mean, we're talking like a lot of different types of delays, which is fine. I don't even care. Like, I'm just holding, you know, I'm not going to hold them to like dates. We just all want it to be as good as it could be, right? So I only bring up the dates because we're getting closer. Like, it's probably going to be happening soon. And then when you see tweets like this, you got to be thinking that, man, something could really be coming here very soon. So then I went into a Clonspiracies, and I was dropping this one like recent Clonspiracy that I've had about the writer from Akira. And maybe the writer from Akira is going to be involved in this. And this is like such a low chance that this is happening, okay? But Alt's Anonymous, he put together this really cool little infographic of some of the stuff we were talking about in that space. And it's a little hard to see everything here, but this picture right here, maybe hopefully you can see my hand here. This is the picture that they sent out in the tweet. Okay. Alt's put this picture, which is the picture of the book that the writer from Akira is working on. And he's been working on it for like 2 years, which puts it right in the pocket of this whole space pod burning situation, okay? And oddly enough, it's called Orbital Era. We're gonna look it up because you're gonna want to check this out. And I don't want to get everybody hyped up because it would be a huge deal if the Akira writer was writing the background for this, okay? Now remember, part of the current lore that we have is that there's 3 extraterrestrials that came from planet Orbitar. Okay. And also keep in mind that before Clone X, this was called Akira. Which, you know, maybe it's just a tribute for sure. But like, the writers got Orbital Era. Sounds a little bit like Orbitarish. And then they were doing Akira. So I don't know. Let's just watch this trailer for a second. But that's the writer right there, Katsuhiro Otomo. So we have some skateboarding going on. And this crashes into, what, we're in space? Huh. Okay, so New Age movie is coming soon now. It looks like it's a movie, so, you know, maybe it's nothing. But if you take a look at that last shot, the guy that was standing on that, he was standing on something that looked like a ship. And, gosh, I don't know if we can even zoom in here on this tweet, but basically, if you look on the right side of this tweet here, it looks like similar to what that astronaut is standing on here. And there's just some other tie-ins. I mean, you know, this is kind of a loose conspiracy theory, but it would be really cool if the writer from Akira was about to write the lore for Artifact's ecosystem. It would kind of line up too. So anyway, we went straight down the rabbit hole right there. But, you know, we're talking about the future, and it's just, you can be a little bit more speculative when you're talking about the future. You know, don't make any purchases. Again, don't, you know, based on any of this. This is just some like hyper future speculation here. And so now we've covered the past, where it all started. We've covered where we are currently with the burning. And now we've talked about some other things that could be involved in the future, you know, whether it's bringing on a great writer to do some amazing lore to set the foundation for the metaverse, of which the pods are clearly going to be involved, whether it's harvesting resources in the future, or possibly whatever their token is, you know, maybe some of that token is distributed to people who own pods. I don't really know. But we do see that there are other very popular projects that are taking those kinds of theories and running with it. So that's it. That's episode 2 of Artifact News' features on some of the larger topics in the ecosystem. And thank you again for joining me. You know, if you can subscribe, that would be great. And if you could hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm going to try to keep busting out these videos a little bit more consistently, maybe start doing some live stuff. If you have any comments or anything that you would like me to start working on or anything, just let me know. I'm new to all of this. You're here with me at the very beginning. I really appreciate that. I know I've got a lot to work on, but it's been a lot of fun. So I just really appreciate you going on the journey with me. So, you know, until next time, go news yourself.